even mine heaps can be beautiful and nice to look at. A pine on top of a heap. Lactarius deliciosus. How do we recognize it? It's a Lactarius because it will produce milk. Of the cap, we should see milk. You see, there is indeed some milk. The milk has this very typical carrot color, beautiful carrot color, that you kind of guess when you see the average color of the mushroom, that is a bit orange. You see that the cap is actually orange and it's zonated. You see these concentric circles around, a little bit like glyciosmus that we've seen. This one is orange, and you see as well that the stipe has this carrot color with a little bit of shades of green here. You see, very nice shades of green. And this also with the gills that have been damaged a long time ago, they are also becoming green. Also very typical carrot color. It really feels like we are cutting a carrot here. This is Lactarius deliciosus, which means delicious. It means delicious, but it's not at all. It's actually edible, but very far from fantastic. The smell is a bit acidic, a bit aromatic, a bit like cedar wood. But this is called deliciosus because of actually confusion from a mycologist who found this mushroom first in south of Europe, and he was called by his peers that it was a very tasty mushroom. He ate it and he found it very tasty. But it turns out that he was eating another species very similar but a bit more red, whose milk is actually not carrot like this, but dark red, like blood. It's called Lactarius sanguifluus. Anyway, so he has eaten Lactarius sanguifluus. He thought it was very tasty, and when he found it back in northern Europe, he thought, well, this is the delicious Lactarius that I ate last time. Call it Lactarius deliciosus. Turns out that this one is much less tasty. Lactarius deliciosus, edible. You find it under pine, especially in pine forest, and it's very common. Typical carrot color of the mushroom with a bit of green shade here and there, and carrot color milk. Yep, at first, probably like you, I thought this was just some toilet paper, but it's not. These are mushrooms. This is Helvella crispa. See, texture is cartilaginous. There is a sort of stipe and a sort of cap in all the individuals that you see here. And the stipe has this kind of holes that are very peculiar and characteristic. The sort of cap is very, well, has this brain-like shape. Helvella crispa. So the genus Helvella has all this kind of brain cap shape and cartilaginous texture, and this one has this pretty disgusting odor, alkaline odor of bleach. Helvella crispa that you find in forests, clear forest basically, so where the trees are not too dense, and this is typically the case here. We are on top of the slag heap, and we have a little bit of birch around, but not that many trees around. Helvella crispa. In theory, I think in theory it could be edible, but it is pretty dangerous because if it's not cooked properly, it's hemolytic. So don't eat it. Just besides it, our friend, the Lycoperdon piriforme. Red underperch on the soil that is a bit humid. So we are under birch, as you can see here. Pioneer birch forest, first point. First interesting thing is the color. You see that the color is very strange. It's in between. The color is in between the beige, the lilac, the pink, and the beige gray. The gills are a little bit ochre in color, and the stipe the same color as the gills, more or less, a bit brownish. And you see also that there is a sort of, it's as if there will be a little bit of powder on it. It's called prenus. You see, and if you touch it, it gets slightly removed. Also the cap is itself prenus. You see that it's covered in plenty of, it's looking like a powder, and if you touch it, it will disappear. The milk is white in color. I will cut a fresh piece so that you can see. The milk is white. Voilà. The milk is white in color, but what is most important is the smell. Glyciosmus means sweet smell, and it actually smells like coconut. This is the only species of mushroom that smells like coconut, as far as I know, or at least in northwestern Europe. So, Lactarius glyciosmus, very common under birch, and you see behind me that we are indeed under birch. Under birch in acidic soils that are a bit wet, and this is exactly what we have here. It's a soil that is actually pretty wet. Is it edible? That's a good question. I think it might be edible, but if edible, it's not worth eating. Lactarius glyciosmus. Plenty of them. See how beautiful they are with a zonated cap. Zonated means that there are rings, concentric rings around the center of the cap. Zonated. Beautiful. Interesting, these are russulas, and I suspect russula cyanoxantha. Let's look at it together. So this is actually a russula. The russula, you recognize them by the fact their habitus, how they look like. Their gills are not going down to the stipe, they are pretty robust, and their flesh is feeling like a chalk. It's very robust and tough. Russulas are very difficult to identify, especially in terms of, you have basically to look at them, to smell them, to taste them, and even then you are not sure because they change color a lot. But with this species we are lucky. That's a species that actually has very little change in color, and it's easy to recognize by its color. And here you see that the color has changed a little bit. It's a bit pale because it has been raining, but you can see all the possible tints that it can have in between the green, a bit of lilac or purple, a bit of grey or dark grey, and overall, perhaps the best characteristic is when touch the gills, they are actually like they let each other squish like butter. Only very few species of Russula do that, and only one combines this combination of color and these gills that can be squished. It's Russula cyanoxantha. Cyano blue, xantha yellow. It's a Russula that combines plenty of different colors, including blue and yellow. It's a little bit like a pigeon neck, if you like, or pigeon chest color. So here again, because it has been raining quite a bit and they are a bit old, the color has changed. This species doesn't smell anything. It comes in forests of deciduous trees, and it is actually edible and very tasty. With Russulas you might have sometimes mistakes with species that are actually toxic, but if you have this combination of colors, and again this very fat gills, no risk of confusion. Russula cyanoxantha, edible, even very tasty. So to be honest, I was a bit surprised to find Russula cyanoxantha. We're at the foot of the hill here, of the mine heap. And usually Russula cyanoxantha is found on relatively old forests, mature forests at least. So I didn't expect it here. It could be that in fact we are so much at the foot of the mine heap that the soil there is not the one of the mine heap, but just the one of the forest that was here before. Also possible. So let's recap. What have we learned today? Well, we've seen that there are actually quite a lot of mushrooms in such an environment that is supposed to be very polluted. And the reason is, the mushrooms, they will come where they have food, and their food is plant material. Whether they are symbiotic, so they live in association with trees, well, they need the roots of the trees. If they are saprophytic, meaning they live on dead wood or dead plants, dead leaves or dead twigs, well, what they need is just plant materials. As soon as you have plant material, you will have mushrooms. And the range of species that will come depends on the range of species of plants that are present. So overall, even in a mine heap, you can find lots of mushrooms if you can find also lots of plants. Oh putain la vache, ouais. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed. At least again, I did. And I think we found pretty interesting species. I'm happy. It's about time to go home and to leave you guys alone until next week.